Good morning, welcome to Catex TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Tuesday, November 11, 2014. You can follow us on Twitter at Catex TV. Today is the 96th anniversary of the end of World War I, Armistice Day. We'll have a little bit on that for our final story. In reinsurance news, Peak Re, the Hong Kong-based reinsurer backed by the Chinese conglomerate Fosun, is in talks with White Mountains to acquire its subsidiary, its reinsurance subsidiary, Sirius, S-I-R-I-U-S. Sirius is a reinsurer based in Stockholm. It also has a Lloyd's syndicate. Sirius had $1.5 billion US of shareholder equity at the end of 2013 and delivered a pre-tax return on equity of about 12.5%. This would suggest a likely acquisition price of around $2 billion. Fosun started Peak Re in late 2012 with about $550 million of capital to write Asia-Pacific business. Peak has now branched out and is looking to fund a Zurich-based startup and is also on the lookout supposedly for a London broker. It's described as the Chinese Berkshire Hathaway. Quote from one source, "They're everywhere, they're looking at everything. They've been extremely active in looking at possible insurance acquisitions." Peak Re refused to comment on the rumors. Liberty Mutual reported a 40% increase in third quarter operating profits in a performance that showed the benefits already accruing to the company of its giant stop-loss cover on the asbestos exposure deal with Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. They reflected an $857 million pre-tax operating profit, which was up from $611 million for the same period last year. The most noteworthy disclosure was that Liberty Mutual recorded $85 million of net asbestos and workers' compensation adverse development in the period. But they were able to book that as a benefit to income because they're going to be paid back by Berkshire Hathaway. 12 underwriters, including Swiss Re, Talbot, Brit, Catlin, Sports Cover, Liberty, Royal Sun Alliance, and Cathedral Capital, are contesting a $12.7 million insurance claim made by the Rolling Stones. This is in connection with the aborted Asian tour that they had to break off back in March of this year when Mick Jagger's long-term girlfriend, fashion designer L. Ren Scott, committed suicide. A judge in Utah has granted underwriters permission to start gathering evidence about Jagger's deceased girlfriend from her brother, looking to possibly invalidate the claim because of a pre-existing mental condition which had given her a propensity apparently to commit suicide. Before the tour began, the group took out a $24 million insurance policy to be paid in event that the concert dates were canceled due to the death of family members or others. Ms. Scott was included as one of the others. Protesters in Mexico have really been on the move lately. We've not been reporting this story, but it's now reached the point where it needs to be discussed. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto left yesterday for the ASEAN conference in Beijing. Meanwhile, national demonstrations are ongoing over the deaths of 43 missing students, which apparently had been killed in drug gang violence. In a presidential crisis, another one began to emerge over the weekend when a Mexican media outlet revealed that the Mexican's First Lady's $7 million home was built and is registered under the name of a company linked to a $4 billion high-speed rail contract. That company belongs to a Chinese-led consortium. It's a 15,000 square foot marble floored swimming pool, etc., etc. Villa located in Mexico City's most exclusive neighborhood. The Mexican government, in an unprecedented move, immediately canceled the contract last week once the president realized that the media outlet was investigating the deal. Speaking of the ASEAN conference in Beijing, Tony Abbott, the Australian Prime Minister, has confronted Russian President Vladimir Putin at a tense face-to-face meeting on the sidelines, holding him complicit in the downing of the Malaysian airliner Flight 17 over the eastern Ukraine. He attempted to get Mr. Putin to apologize and consider restitution. It was a sharp 15-minute meeting. Mr. Abbott pointed out that when the U.S. had inadvertently shot down an Iranian airliner, it had promptly apologized and paid financial compensation. 38 Australians were on board that flight, and Mr. Abbott has led the global outrage against the Russians. A quote-unquote new airport is going to come into being in Bermuda in about 3 years. The government signed a deal between itself and the Canadian Commercial Corporation yesterday morning. The island is going to get a new $200 million terminal building with the expectation of hundreds of construction jobs generated. It's going to be a multi-purpose new airport terminal. It's going to have complete new passenger facilities, and presumably will also have jetways so that it will lead immediately right to the airplane rather than forcing passengers to go down onto the tarmac and climb back up into the planes. The government will select a Canadian developer as part of the deal. Europe is marking Armistice Day today with ceremonies and moments of silence as France opens an international memorial on a former battlefield. This year's events have special significance because it is the 100th anniversary of the start of World War I. In Lloyd's, the Lutine bell is being rung. There's a ceremony going on the underwriting floor. It's also worth noting that on the Lloyd's website, in the About Us section in the history of Lloyd's, there is a lengthy 325-page book that has been written by cathedral underwriter John Hamblin, in which he outlines the lives and the deaths of the 214 Lloyd's practitioners who lost their lives in World War I. I would encourage you to read it. Mr. Hamblin has done a phenomenal piece of research there. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.